It seems the minds of the men, women and children working at Respawn Entertainment have been clouded by the dark side once again, into releasing one of the most technically embarrassing final products I've seen in years. And that's saying something, man, because I've played a lot of those recently. I got through Arkham Knight, I got through the Callisto Protocol, Dead Space Remake, Last of Us Part 1. There's been a load of shitty PC ports recently, and this unfortunately joins the catalogue. What the fuck happened, guys? Were you pressed for time or something? The PC port in this game is beyond horrible, and probably one of the worst PC ports I've ever played in my history of playing video games. It is absolutely atrocious, man. There's countless texture pop-ins, horrific frame rate drops, crashes, almost every game-breaking bug out there plagues this game. Respawn just recently came out acknowledging the state of this game at release on PC, which just completely baffles me. If you knew the game was fucking broken, why would you release it? Just delay it if you have to, because sure, you're gonna piss a lot of people off, but anger is a whole lot worse than disappointment, and that's this game on a technical level.
We're sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry. Sorry.
So if we look past all the undetailed textures and crashes, how is this game? Well, my response might surprise you, but this is by far one of the most successful sequels I've ever played. So sit back, eat that free rolled popcorn, and enjoy my review of Star Wars Jedi Survivor. The survivor of the PC port, of course.
Hope survives.
Now first things first, let's talk about the gameplay. Now the gameplay loop in Fallen Order was always a tad bit slower paced and strategic. Every enemy or location always had to be taken seriously with a certain awareness and precaution because of your, well, lacking abilities. Let's just leave it at that. Now, I'm not knocking the game for this in any way, not in the slightest, because it makes you feel grounded and on the same level as your opponents. It worked really well for that game. However, it's 5 years later, and I was hoping for some innovation which was thankfully addressed and included in this game. In some of the most creative and awesome ways I could have never anticipated, and it left me totally surprised. In this game you get more force abilities, more ways to initiate combat, more ways to even traverse some of these more bigger and expansive environments. Everything in this game is bigger in scope and much more ambitious than its predecessor. The first big gameplay improvement I noticed was the combat. Now what this game does, which is really interesting, is it takes your power level up a step, but still makes you feel grounded in this universe. Enemies are still extremely dangerous and need to be approached with caution, because if you're careless about the way you engage enemies, you'll experience the equivalent of screwing up a day on fucking Wall Street.
You will fall out of balance, split your differential, and tip the fuck over. Or worse yet, I've seen this happen, implode.
No, I don't want to implode, sir.
No, you don't.
I'm in it for the long run, you know?
Every single opponent in this game are so well designed because they always feel like a fair and rewarding challenge to face in combat. The only way you can conquer these enemies is simply by mastering the mechanics, and it's that simple. The get good meme is real, and it's never been more prevalent than it has been here, and if you can't get good at the mechanics, then just don't play this game, it's just gonna hurt your feelings.
Can't make one mistake? How is that a game? That's not a fucking game. I don't play games to fucking be perfect at them. I play games to get away from the bullshit of the real world. To just forget everything for a little bit and not be stressed out. But no, as soon as you make a mistake on this fucking game, you are fucked. You are screwed if you fuck up once.
What I love about this combat system is you have 5 different lightsaber stances to engage and overcome the enemies you face throughout the game. They all have their own unique and purposeful playstyles that all feel important to the core gameplay and combat loop. The single-bladed stance is the default average playstyle, right? It's useful in most combat scenarios, however is not better than any of the other stance's situational uses. The double-bladed lightsaber is the stance that's most effective for keeping everyone off your ass. To be honest, this one was probably my least favourite because the damage you deal to enemies with this stance is a little too low to ever be truly effective against some of the later enemies in the game. Especially some of the boss fights, man. These bosses will fucking laugh at you if you have this stance equipped when fighting them. Just stick to the other ones, they're much more effective. My personal favorite stance, the dual wield lightsabers, are probably the most badass lightsabers in the game in my opinion. It allows you to go fucking aggro on any and every enemy in the game. This was the most effective against boss battles because you can destroy most enemies' defensive shields almost instantly through the overwhelmingly amount of aggressive attacks you can deal to enemies in a simple combo. The fourth, and definitely most anticipated stance that was all over the marketing for this game, is the Pirate class. This class allows you to roleplay as Han fucking Solo with a lightsaber, giving you a blaster to dispose of your enemies from a range distance. Thankfully, this blaster does great damage and feels really balanced in the gameplay because the way you replenish your ammo is by dealing damage to other enemies with the lightsaber, which was a smart decision. That one mechanic made this probably the most fun playstyle out of all 5 because not only you got to dispose of your enemies from a range distance, it also encouraged you to kill your enemies at a close distance as well. Probably the last and worst gameplay stance in my opinion was the samurai playstyle. This stance essentially turns you into Jin Sakai from Ghost of Tsushima, taking advantage of heavy attacks to deal with the more intimidating opponents. Mini-bosses and challenging enemy types fall victim to this playstyle because the damage these blows deal to enemies is crazy and probably has the most satisfying animations in the game, like the fucking dropkick. That's all of the combat stances, and they're all really fun and interesting to use in combat. By the time you unlock all 5 of these stances, you will feel like a Jedi, and I'm fully aware of the meme, but when it's fucking true and not just a marketing stunt, then there's value to a statement like that.
These reviews read exactly the same. Makes you feel eerily like Batman. The player really feel like Batman. Could not look or feel more Batman. It does feel like we were feel like Batman. IGN, what did you think?
Arkham Asylum makes you feel like you're Batman.
There's a fight going on over there.
Just to touch on all the Force abilities, they're all effective and probably your most versatile ability in your arsenal. Successfully force pushing an enemy away will send them back a couple of feet, giving you a moment to breathe and plan your next attack in combat. Force Pull allows you to grab enemies from a distance and pull them closer to you for maximum damage, or you can force push them away for an easy kill. Throughout the campaign, you'll unlock additional Force abilities, however I never found them useful in combat and mainly saw them as abilities that are utilised during key moments in the story.
I'm not worth your time. It's easier to let me through.
You're not worth my time, scum. It's easier to let you through. Sir? TK-783 to base command. Lower the shield. What? Wait, what? The shield is down! Blast it!
Something else this game perfectly executes are its fantastic worlds for you to explore. Not only are these worlds beautiful, vibrant, and full of wildlife, they're actually really large and expansive, offering more of an open world approach to level design, as opposed to Jedi Fallen Order's linear and more claustrophobic worlds, let's leave it at that. These worlds are so huge and expansive that walking around on foot mostly isn't an option in this game. The game instead encourages you to tame and befriend the inhabitant wildlife of these worlds, to ride around and explore. Although I do have to say that some of these creatures do look weirdly creepy, like look at the fucking raptor in this game. By the end of this game, I was feeling like that guy in Far Cry Primal, just charging into bases with my loyal companion by my side, only to fuck shit up and set a new example of what happens when you screw with the Jedis.
What have you done?
What impressed me even more were the story-based levels in this game. Not only are the encounters in these levels excellently designed and paced throughout, but the actual story-based boss fights in these levels are some of the best I've fought in years, and some of my favourite bosses in the last couple years. They have a perfect blend of set-piecey moments that constantly shake up the bosses and transition them into different phases throughout the fight, and offer perfect challenge that pushes you to your Jedi limits. However, fortunately, the game never makes you feel overwhelmed or frustrated due to the difficulty spike. Because to be totally honest, this game is really hard throughout the entire experience, and boss fights are battled in the exact same way you engage regular enemies. So there is no difficulty spike, they just test your skill and knowledge of the game's mechanics a little more than regular enemies, which is what all great boss battles should do. So if the gameplay is pretty much perfect, then how is the story? Well, the story is honestly kind of a mixed bag for me. It tries to do way too much in its runtime and often lacks focus in its narrative. My favourite example of this is presented in its main villains here. The first game had us being chased by the Imperials and the Inquisitors, who were constantly pursuing us throughout the entire game. They were incredibly interesting, had fun development, and ultimately had really satisfying character arcs that resonated with the core themes of that game's story. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, on the other hand, feels like a scatterbrained mess with its villains. Throughout the game, we have two different villains that share the spotlight, and with better writers, this could have worked. The first villain is the guy you've seen over all the advertisement of the game, and is by far the most interesting out of the two. He has fantastic motivations, a compelling story, and 3 great boss battles throughout the game, which feels like a nod to the second sister in the first game. However, after the final encounter, he's killed off and is replaced with a much more less convincing villain, who is basically a discount Joel from The Last of Us. I mean, he has the exact same motivations and the exact same character arc as Joel did in that game, which is just kind of a joke, to be honest. I'd never expect something like that in Star Wars, and it feels uninspired and a tad bit generic because we've seen this before. If this game could just commit to one of these two villains, then this would have been perfectly fine. We've seen how effective the writing is when there's a focus on a specific character instead of multiple. What this sadly does is hurt the pacing of the story and makes me feel way less invested in what's happening because there's too many things going on at once to focus on. If this game just committed to one of these two villains, then this would have been perfectly fine. We've seen how effective the writing is when there's a focus on a specific character instead of multiple. What this sadly does is it hurts the pacing of the story because it's trying to develop too many characters instead of focusing on one of them and adding further depth to make them more interesting antagonists. If I'm gonna be brutally honest, guys, the issues go much further than that, okay? Not only are the villains forgettable and underdeveloped, the overall story is all over the place. There's certain elements and plot threads that are nicely developed and paid off by the end of the story, such as Cal and Merrin's relationship. However, this game needed to do much more than that if it's ever going to compare to the narrative of the first game. The journey Cal Kestis goes on in this game is mostly forgettable. It lacks focus, there's way too many ideas that don't have enough time to be explored in an interesting way, and the ending just straight up feels underwhelming and wholly unsatisfying. A whimper compared to the bombastic finale of its predecessor. I was unfortunately disappointed with the story in this game, and that's putting it mildly, and for those who got a lot out of the story, I understand, I really do. Poor pacing and lack of focus in stories really do tamper my enjoyment of the game, and it crushes me to say that. And that is an incredibly subjective point of view. Not many people care about this, I do, and when it's not done as well as I'd like it to be, it kind of hurts my feelings, but that's just my opinion. It probably won't matter to you guys. So fuck, what do I even give this game with its disappointing story, dogshit PC port, but also with its fantastic combat, level design and boss fights? If I have to be brutally honest and upfront with you guys, I'm gonna give this game a 7 out of 10. I think that's a very fair score. It has fantastic elements, it really does, but the technical issues, weirdly paced story and unsatisfying final boss left me feeling a little hollow inside. It's a fun game, but nothing to run out and buy immediately. I'd say wait for a sale and then pick this up. Thanks for watching, guys. Just to update you, we're gonna start streaming soon on camera, with the first stream being the Outlast Trials. So if you want to see me shit my pants, then stick around to see me get the heebie-jeebies. Fuck, I can't wait for that game. Appreciate you guys watching and sticking around to the end of the video. Every video I make, I'm trying to improve certain elements so these videos can get better and better for every upload. So stick around and eventually we will make fantastic content. It's just taking me a bit of time to get there, but we're improving every video. If you guys have any contributions towards the video editing, if you guys want to make any comments or any constructive criticisms, feel free to leave it in the section, and I'll read it and implement it in the following uploads. Can't wait to see you guys in the next video. Have a nice day, and please stay safe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.